Good evening, everyone. My name is Zach from the Lumios Post, and I thank you all for joining me on today's episode of The Terrifying World of Pokemon, where we explore that the Pokemon world isn't as nice and friendly and magical as one may initially think. Today's story follows a man whose obsession with Hoenn archaeology proves to be a very costly one. The desert was cold, very cold. It's funny when one thinks of a desert, they think of how hot it is, and it is hot during the day, but few are aware of how low the temperatures get at night. Edgar traced back why this was happening to them. He had led a small research team consisting of himself, his wife Anna, and his longtime friend and colleague Dean, on an expedition to find the desert ruins, said to house an ancient Pokemon, one that, with its capture and the study of the ruins it resides in, could allow Edgar and his team to understand more about the history of Pokemon and people. That was his team's job as archaeologists, after all. But they had searched all day. Nothing. Now they were stuck here at night. The desert winds tossing sand around them. Good thing they had their safety goggles. As they kept going into the night, Edgar could see his team's morale was low, to say the least. I know it's been rough, but legends say it shouldn't be too much further. We have to go further than anyone else has before, yeah? And when we do, it'll be so worth it. Anna, we will be archaeology legends. We will be in history books. Dean, the discovery will make you rich. So rich you'll even be able to buy that vacation home in Sutopolis you've been eyeing. Dean had enough of this. Edgar had given the same speech 7 times now. It was midnight now, or at least that's what Dean assumed. His Pokenav was dead, so he had no true way of knowing. You keep saying that. Dean's voice shook. He had stopped in his tracks. He was trying to hold it together, but he really had had enough. His fists were clenched by his side, so tight they slightly twitched. The desert ruins are a legend, Edgar. A legend. That means that just as well as they could exist, they could not exist at all. Dean had lost control and was yelling now. I'm so done with this, Edgar. I'm done with you. He turned around, began to walk as his best friend and his wife stared at him, too taken aback to even be able to usher out a word. He looked back over his shoulder. This isn't worth all the riches in the world. I'm sorry, Edgar, but it's always something with you, and I've had it. First that Mirage Island near Pacific Log that we never found, by the way. Then the appearance of Hoopa, a Pokemon we don't even know exists in the Hoenn region. Never found that either. Now this. I can't anymore. Anna, I truly wish you the best. And then he calmly walked away into the night. Anna turned to her husband. She knew that had to hurt. Edgar did have a tendency to focus on legends that no one even really knew to be true, but that's honestly what she loved about him. He'd get so excited talking about all these things you'd think he was a child watching a Pokemon battle. He was looking down and wiped a sleeve across his face. Then he looked up, took a deep breath, and smiled. Boy, is he going to feel dumb when we find this thing. Anna couldn't help but smile back. And then, a scream. When you're in the desert in the thick of night, it's so quiet apart from the roaring winds. A scream cuts through that quiet like a scyther. Both Edgar and Anna's hearts dropped. They turned to each other, then ran in the direction of their old friend Dean. On a rock, they found Dean's Pokenav and his safety goggles, but Dean was nowhere to be found. Edgar turned to his wife, doing his best to steady his voice so not to show he was scared. Dean hates bug types. I bet he had a skirmish with a Skorupi. Yeah, that's it. Probably dropped this stuff to outrun the thing. We should keep going. Anna nodded and turned to follow her husband, knowing well that Skorupi didn't live in the home region, but also knowing how important this expedition was to her husband, and knowing how much he could use a whim right now. Besides, while not bug types, Trapinch and Vibrava are very similar to bug types and do live in Hoenn's desert. Edgar's prediction could be true, just about one of these Pokemon and not Skorupi. She didn't let her mind stay on the fact that Edgar's proposal of a Skorupi likely meant he didn't believe his own story. It was odd. The desert sandstorms seemed to be picking up. And then they seemed to be picking up a lot more. The duo could see maybe a few feet ahead of them. There are rumors of protections placed to keep people from getting into the desert ruins, said Edgar, any confidence lost now restored. Surely this sandstorm only serves as proof of its existence. His optimism once again made Anna smile. She could feel her safety goggles begin to shake on her head. She'd need to tighten them to get through the sandstorm. With one hand, she grabbed the strap right above her ear, using the other to pull it to tighten. It seemed to be jammed, so she loosened the strap a little to retighten it. Suddenly, as if a living thing seizing this opportunity, the sandstorm sent one strong gust, strong enough to rip the loosened safety goggles from her grasp and off her head. "Edgar, my safety goggles!" Edgar turned behind him where his wife was, the sandstorm so strong now he could only see inches ahead of him, and only hear his wife's voice. "Oh, Edgar, is that you?" his wife called, but she seemed even further away. But then Edgar heard her scream, and it was enough to put him in full panic mode. "Anna!" Edgar called out to his wife. "Anna, where are you?" He walked aimlessly around, searching for his wife, when a crunching noise suddenly came from below his foot. His heart dropped. He looked down below his foot to find his wife's now broken pair of safety goggles. His heart now felt like it was using extreme speed to get out of his own chest. And he began to run in every direction when, bam! He ran straight into a structure. The sandstorm, once again as if on cue, ended. Completely cleared. There before him stood the desert ruins. In a dreamlike state, he hobbled around to the entrance, sealed. As if by magic, nothing he could do to open it. He fell to the ground, sobbing, when then he heard something, feet trudging through the desert sands. "Anna, is that you?" He rose immediately to his feet. No response. "Anna?" Still no response. "Anna, the desert ruins, it's right here," he said happily, turning back to the entrance, leaving his back to the open desert. "It's sealed, though. I don't know why or how, but I just can't get in." He could hear the footsteps again, now right behind him. This time, though, it seemed like more than just one person. "Anna?" he said, knowing deep down his wife wasn't behind him. He turned around, and there before him stood a ragtag group of the Scarecrow Pokemon, Cacturne, now completely surrounding him. I hope you all were able to make it through that terrifying story. It's kind of hard not to be fascinated with the world of Pokemon. They're such magical, majestic creatures. But, like any fascination can, be careful with that fascination, because it can grow, and grow, and grow, like a cancer, into an obsession, into an addiction. One that can leave you blind from the dangers that surround you. If you ever go walking through the deserts of Hoenn, I suggest bringing a bug or fire-type Pokemon. As Cacturne isn't something you want to have to stare down alone. Be sure to let me know what Pokemon you would be most terrified to have to face by yourself with no Pokemon on your side, as I think Cacturne is definitely a candidate. Be sure to also like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications so you don't miss any of our future videos in this series. Until next time, I will see all of you later.